Hello and welcome back to Spirit of Nature Art and the final episode in this beautiful Stamperia Forest folio journal. This is what we got to last time, and now we just have this flap over on the left hand side to do the covers and also all of the little kind of cards and booklets and stuff like that. So I have got this kind of offcut here that I've folded in half that I'm going to create a bit of a sort of pockety, flappety sort of thing, as you can see. So I've cut it down to the right size and I've edged it with distress ink, and I'm just kind of playing around with how that's going to sit, the position of it. It's going to create a kind of a tuck spot there behind that flap, and then an extra kind of foldy out bit sort of like that that's just going off the screen. So I'm just sort of playing around a little bit, cutting bits of the paper down to size. So loving this gorgeous kind of sort of river mandala kind of bubbly piece. It's lovely. So that's going to go on there like that. So I still need to cover that little flap though. So I'm just sort of again playing around with where things are going to go. So trying to find that nice contrast, particularly because I've got that tuck spot there, so I want some contrast going on. So again, just kind of cutting that piece down to size. It doesn't need to fit that whole piece of paper because most of that's going to get kind of covered when I glue the flap down to it. So just kind of seeing how things kind of look with each other. Wanted something that contrasted the blue of the kind of fish behind that. That's not contrasty enough. It's not going to kind of stand out enough. That's got quite a nice sort of contrast to it. But that's a much better contrast. You can really see there the difference between the two layers of that flappy piece, which I'm now just about to cut out, just by putting it in place and flipping it over and drawing around the tab part, just so I can get the right shape and size. There we go. So that's going to cover up that little flap, and then this piece will get stuck on underneath. So you've got that nice contrast between the two, so you're not going to miss that there's a tuck spot there. So this can now just get glued down. And now I can do the same with this piece. Nothing complicated there. Just deciding how I want the flap piece to go, making sure I'm putting this in the right place. It'll make sense when you see, I think at the moment it's hard to actually kind of see what I'm doing with the flap, but once this is glued down and it's in place, you'll see what I'm trying to do. So what I'm going to do now is just glue the three sides of this flap here, so along that long edge and along the two short edges, and put this piece down on the top. So you can see, here we go, so you can see now that is in place. There's a tuck spot there, and we've got that extra flap coming out at the side there, like that. So I want to use this gorgeous piece of paper here because it's, although it's got all that lovely kind of sacred geometry on it, it's just perfect for maybe colouring in. So I'm kind of cutting that to size, and I'm cutting it into two pieces so it can kind of fold out as almost like a colouring page. So just edging it all with the distress ink, and then because this is just a colouring page, nothing else, no extra pockets or anything, I can just glue both pieces down completely flat to those two flap out sections there. So what we've got is that flap, we've got that tuck spot, and now we've got this space here where we can put this gorgeous blue piece that can create a pocket. So I'm just putting a little thumb notch in there. I've also put a bit of distress ink down where that thumb notch is going to show, so that that looks aged underneath it as well. So I'm just gluing the three edges on here and creating one big pocket. You could create two separate ones like we've done before, but I quite fancied using a nice big kind of tag here. So just gluing that in position. And now heading over to the cover. We've already kind of created all the pieces for the cover. We did Mr. Fox, I think in episode 1. So I just need to make sure when I glue him down now that I don't glue down the tuck spot that we went to all that bother to create. So I'm just putting some pencil marks on. Where I'm scribbling is where we can glue. And the bit I'm not scribbling on, we don't want to put any glue on because that's the bit where we are going to tuck things behind Mr. Fox. So just putting glue around all of the edges first of all, and then going in and filling in the places where I have scribbled with my pencil. So all of these areas here, and going up as close to that line as I can so that that bit will really stick firm, so it makes it really easier then to get the cards in the tuck spot. And then just gluing along that bottom line there, leaving plenty of space for those journal cards to tuck in. So popping that on the cover like that, really giving it a good burnish. But also I want to make sure that I haven't got any glue seepage that's going to close that tuck spot up. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of offcut in there so that I can really push down and know that that piece isn't going to get stuck down and I'll lose my tuck spot. And now I can bring in that back cover so that lovely pattern goes all the way across. Same, I'm just gluing the whole thing down because there's no kind of little tuck spots on this one. So just gluing that down, putting that in place. So we now have our cover with our tuck spot here. We have this little tuck spot here, which we've just created. We've got our nice big pocket here, our colouring page here, and then these were the pockets we've already created in the other episodes and all the little tuck spot areas behind all these bits here. The eagle's causing me a few problems. I just need to kind of fiddle around it a little bit and get it kind of used to having things pulled in and out of it, but that will get better. We've got the fox over here, got these other pockets in the other flap over here, and then we open up this bit and we've got all of the pockets in these little flaps as well, and this pocket here, and all of these now need to be filled. So before that, I want to create the journal. Now we cut this piece out earlier in one of the episodes. We saved it to be able to create the journal. So I've just scored it down the middle, and I've got some tea dye paper from my stash that I'm just going to size up. I want it a bit smaller so that it doesn't overhang. So you can see I'm just putting a bit of space all the way around the edge. And I'm just going to use my steel rule and tear it down to size, and then fold that centrally as well, just edging the Stamperia paper. And here's my little tea dye journal that I'm going to put inside that cover. So now I want to bind it together. So I'm just going to line it up and make sure it's in the place I want it to be. And I'm going to use my bulldog clips just to hold it in place on one side. And then I'm going to find the center point. And then I'm going to also evenly mark 2 dots, one at the top and one at the bottom, so that I can bind this together. Now I always put the holes in with the book closed. I find it just keeps everything in the right place and stops it all wandering around. And then I've just got some embroidery thread here and a binding needle. I have a curved one because I've done some Coptic binding, but you can do this with a straight one. In some ways a straight one might be easier. So I'm going to go from the inside to the outside through that central hole. And then it doesn't matter at this point whether I go up or down, but I'm going to go back in through the top hole, holding on to the tail so that I don't pull it all the way through. Then I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom hole and go from the inside to the outside. And then I'm going to come back in through that middle hole, being careful not to split the thread that's already there. And I want the two tails to be on either side of that central thread so that I can then tie a double knot in the middle. And that's it, simple as. That's all we need to do, just to bind those pages into place, snip them off, take our bulldog clips off, and there we have a really nice little bound journal to pop inside. Now we've got all of those little tuck spots, haven't we? So I've just found all these offcuts from the rest of the pages that I haven't used yet. Some of the cards that they've already got, cut those out, but some of them is just turning them into tag shapes and just kind of going through and seeing what kind of size spaces we've got to fill and making sure I've got something to match each of them. So everything's getting distress inked around the edge, and then what I want to do is, for some of them, I want to put some journaling space on the back, because some of them, this piece here is just from the front cover and it's not got, there we go, the back isn't for journaling on, so it's very busy. So I'm just using my glue stick and just covering that, and I'm going to stick it down to the tea-dyed paper so that we're creating a journaling card. Now, some of the pieces that I've cut off have already got nice kind of backs. There's plenty of space to be able to journal on the back as well as having the pretty front. So I'm going to do this with some of them, but not all of them, fitting as many on that page as I can and cutting those out. And then, usual thing, let's get some distress ink around the edges just to take away where we've, that kind of whiteness of the edge that we've cut. And doing the same on the back as well, just to kind of soften the edges. And all of these little bits that I've got, I'm just kind of deciding what to do. I like the look of it, it's something nice. Well, this one I could have cut into 2 square pieces, but I've decided instead to fold it in half so it creates another little kind of mini journal. So just kind of burnish that fold there, and now we've got another little sort of mini book. So I'm just going to do exactly what I did with the big journal. I'm going to line up my tea-dye paper, mark the size, and then use my steel rule just to tear a few pieces down to size and create a really cute little booklet just to pop in one of those tuck spots. So I'm just kind of going through that pile of offcuts and just seeing what they lend themselves to. This one lends itself to a nice little booklet, other ones little tags, and other of them, you know, sort of slightly bigger, make good journaling spots. So I'm just playing around with each of them, looking at them as I pick them up and deciding where they would fit nicely in the book. So here's our little booklet here like that. So I'm just going to bind it in a similar way, but obviously this is teeny tiny, so it's, you know, it doesn't need three holes in it. So I'm just going to put a hole at the kind of towards the top and a hole towards the bottom, and use the same embroidery thread. Actually just found a little offcut there. I tend to use, as I'm sort of measuring up, sort of 1.5 times the length of the whole book to kind of decide on the length of string I need. So I'm just threading it from, I'm kind of doing this one slightly different because we haven't got the 3 holes, so I want that tie to be in the middle, so I'm just kind of popping it in the top and the bottom there and then tying it in the middle. It's only a tiny book, so it doesn't really require anything more than that. There we go, one sweet little journal to pop in one of those tuck spots. I've decided as well to put a little tuck spot on the inside back cover of the journal. So again, just as I picked up some of these offcuts, I thought this piece lended itself to a nice big kind of tuck spot there. So I've just glued along those 2 edges so that we can pop things in. And I thought I'd make a tag to go in that one because it's quite big. So I'm just chopping off the top corner and flipping it over and using that as a template to chop the other corner off. So I've got an even tag. I've distress inked around the edge of it, and I'm now just finding that center point so that I can punch a hole in it. I don't want to add any more bulk to this journal, so I'm not going to put an eyelet in. Instead, I'm going to use some hole reinforcers. So I've just got another little offcut of the Stamperia paper, and I'm using this little hole reinforcer punch and just punching out some little reinforcers rather than using an eyelet, which does add quite a bit of bulk. And then pop a little bit of glue on, pop it down. That adds a nice contrast and kind of finishes that look off quite nicely. So I have put it all together. Here we go. We have got some of those little tags on the front there. So I've done the little hole reinforcers, and I've just put a little bit of garden twine through them. And then as we take a little look inside, here is our journal, the tea dye paper. And then we filled the pocket at the back here with, again, just some of those offcuts, and some of them we turned into tags. And then we've got all of our little tuck spots hidden within the journal there. So here's that big card here that we backed with tea dye in that nice long pocket there. We've got that colouring page, and then I filled all of these little spaces here with these offcuts that we've turned into little tags or journal cards. Like these ones didn't need any backing. They have got nice space on to be able to write on. That one I've put backing on so that we've got a blank space. I've stamped on some of them as well. I love these little ones. They're so this one here is so tiny, but it's just really nice. And there we go. My eagle got used to having things put in and out. So sometimes you just need to kind of, you know, it needs to just get that little bit of used to having things moving through it. So all these little tuck spots now have been filled with all of those offcuts. This is how I like to journal. I'm not one to sit down and write loads, so I don't like a great big huge kind of blank sheet. I like all these little pieces of spaces where I can draw or doodle or write little kind of phrases or quotes that I've seen. It's less intimidating than having big blank pages. So there we go, the final end product. I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope you've liked how it has turned out. If you want to see, because this was a recreation of the very first journal I made a year ago. I used exactly the same kind of products in terms of the Stamperia paper and the file folders, and I haven't looked at the other one. I thought, you know what, I will just do this and then go and compare. So what I'm going to do is I will leave a link to the flip through of the original one I made a year ago, so you can see the difference between how it turned out a year ago and how it turned out this time. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've enjoyed following along if you've been making with me too.